Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. In today's podcast, what I want to talk to you guys about is birth control pills and Hashimoto's. Now, this is a really, really important topic because as you're going to learn in this podcast, there are so many potential consequences to taking birth control pills. It affects your body in numerous ways, and it can make improving Hashimoto's very difficult, as well as put you at risk for a lot of other problems. And I want you to know, right from the start that my intention here is definitely not to scare you with this information, but to give you information so that you can be more empowered to make decisions about your health. Okay? So let's talk about birth control pills a little bit. It's really important to know that birth control pills, for one of the things, they have to pass when you take them. You take them orally. If you're taking them orally, you're swallowing a pill, it has to pass through the liver to get into the bloodstream. So the liver has to do a lot of work to metabolize that hormone and get it into the bloodstream. That's why, a lot of times hormones typically have a lower risk profile when they're taken via a different delivery method. So because it doesn't have to pass through the liver. If it has to pass through the liver, you can actually see a lot of inflammation. I know I've caught it several times where we've done very expanded blood panels on clients that I work with, and we find that their liver enzymes are elevated. And when we start looking at everything that's going on and we start rolling other things out, it definitely points to the fact that they're taking an oral contraceptive that is causing inflammation. And that's something that you really have to evaluate. It needs to be evaluated, and it needs to be like top of mind when you're taking oral contraceptives. Now, when we just saying that, how healthy do you think that is for your liver? If you're taking something orally that's causing your liver to become inflamed, because really the liver's having to work overtime to metabolize that, guys. It's to break it down and clear it from the body, because all hormones have to be taken and they have to be made water soluble, because they're not water soluble. So water soluble means that they can be eliminated by the body in your urine, feces, sweat. Basically, those are the primary methods of elimination. So when you think about that, that's a really big issue. You're inflaming the liver. You're causing a lot of problems, and we're going to talk about that in more detail in just a second. So one of the other things to know is that these hormones are synthetic. So they're not natural hormones. They're synthetic, and it can imbalance your body in a lot of different ways. It's really the way that the body works, right? So your brain is always monitoring the levels of hormones in the body. And then whenever it's low, the brain signals the glands of your body to produce the hormone. As the hormone rises, the brain recognizes that and lowers its signaling to the glands for production of hormones. So it balances it, right? So if it's high, the brain keeps it in balance. The brain's listening. If it's low, the brain sends signals to make more. If it's high or high enough, the brain backs off production a bit to keep balance. That's how it works. And that's really an important thing. That's called a feedback loop. So the brain's always listening. It's a feedback system, right? It makes it, then the brain listens to what's there and controls what its production is. The thing is, when you're taking these hormones externally, the brain and the glands, they slow down their production. And they can actually become dormant. They can go dormant due to the fact that the body and the brain is recognizing that you're actually getting this external source of the hormone. So why, think about it for a second. Why would the brain continue to produce it? If it's coming from an external source, the brain monitors it, sees it's there, then it's not going to signal the glands to make the hormone, right? So what you can actually do with prolonged utilization of these hormones, you can actually break this feedback system. You can cause the brain to say, all right, you know what, the hormone's there. I never have to signal basically your brain makes a hormone that signals the pituitary gland, which is also in the brain. And the pituitary gland then makes a hormone that signals your ovaries and the rest of your glands to make hormones. So if you're getting that hormone from an external source, then guess what? It's not going to produce those hormones to signal the gland to make, let's say, estrogen or progesterone, for example. Why would it, right? It's already there. It's in enough quantity. But if you take it for a long period of time, that can actually suppress the brain's feedback loop, that production forward. And then whenever you try to get off of a pill, it can be a shock to the body and the brain may not respond. You may not, that's actually called post-birth control syndrome. And you may not actually get that production due to breaking the feedback loop, and you may therefore have to continue taking it indefinitely. So it's really important to understand. Now, there are a lot of other things to take into consideration here. And really, I already mentioned the liver. The liver, it's extremely important to look at this issue with the liver. These excess hormones, they can stress the liver, and the liver has to break them down for elimination. So this chronic overburden of the liver can create a lot of issues. It can make it sluggish. It can make it congested. It can cause problems where it can actually promote higher risk for increasing inflammatory levels. Not a lot of people realize that the liver can really does help to decrease the inflammatory burden on the body. And the liver's involved in hundreds of biochemical processes. So this burden on the liver can be really significant to its function. It can lead to things like high cholesterol and even create problems with the immune system and immune function. Now, one of the most, probably, I think it's understood, but it's not, people don't understand really the mechanism behind how this occurs. One of the most significant things that we see that can occur, I should say, is that whenever you're taking these birth control pills, right, you're taking these hormones, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be birth control. We're talking about birth control here, but what if we're actually talking about someone that's using a hormone replacement during menopause, right? Well, the issue becomes, can your body metabolize it? If your body does metabolize the hormone and break it down and eliminate it, is it doing an efficient job? Is it making it through all of the phases of the liver? So there are actually two technical phases: phase 1 detoxification of the liver, phase 2 detoxification. Phase 3 is something that we really look at it as elimination. So as the liver breaks down the hormone, it goes through phase 1 and phase 2, and then after it goes through phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification, then it has to be eliminated by the bile. So that's actually, I consider that phase 3. Okay, so when you're looking at this, these hormones also put you at risk for having very high estrogen metabolites, which have to be measured via urine. Okay, so they can't be assessed any way other than urinary, because you have to look at how these levels are after the liver has broken them down. So you have to look at them in a one of the waste, or I should say byproducts of your waste elimination methods, which is going to be your really looking at the urine is a great way to do it. So when we're considering this issue, when you're breaking down these estrogens, they'll break down into different metabolites: 16-hydroxyestrogen, 4-hydroxyestrogen, and 2-hydroxy. The 16 and 4-hydroxy in particular are not good metabolites. You want your liver to break these estrogens down, push them out, and them to be the 2-hydroxy metabolite primarily. There's balance. You're going to have some of all of them, but the 16-hydroxy is associated with all kinds of problems. We see that there's some evidence that it may be connected with things like cystic breasts, endometriosis, different type of cyst formation throughout the body. There's a lot of different problems. Now, when you're looking at the 4-hydroxyestrogen, it's a metabolite. Remember, it's how the liver's breaking it down. You see, more that's the one that we know is a greater risk for cancer, breast cancer, because it does damage to the DNA. So these things, the liver is really important. So not only does your liver have to eliminate these estrogens, these estrogens can cause it to become inflamed and become less efficient at its job, which is incredibly important for everything I've already mentioned. Now, when we're talking about Hashimoto's, and we're talking about this process of methylation, which you guys have probably heard. Methylation is just where you take a methyl group is one carbon with 3 hydrogens, and methyl groups what they do is they help with detoxification, they help with turning on and off gene expression, they do lots of important stuff. So a lot of people have heard about methylation, and they've heard about it in regards to, well, they've heard the word thrown around a lot for probably in the realm of detoxification. They've also heard the word used when people are talking about genetic polymorphisms or genetic SNPs, and in particular talking about the MTHFR variant. So, and I mean, I don't want to get into a long discussion on that here. There's a lot of important things that we need to talk about regarding genomics and epigenetics and genetic SNPs, because there's a lot of misunderstanding in how to interpret that data, a lot of misunderstanding. So, but anyway, in regards to, contraception, or these oral contraceptives, your methylation, Hashimoto's, it depletes this process, these birth control pills, they result in depletion of these methyl groups, these methyl donors. This is really, really important, guys, because it's a liver detoxification pathway that's we're talking about here. When you deplete these methyl donors, the body cannot methylate efficiently and detoxify. It's one of the phases, it's involved in one of your phases of detoxification. So when you start looking at this, and we already know that about 20% of the population are already slow methylators, plus you add these birth control pills on top of it, it's an issue. It is definitely a problem. So we've got to be very, very careful at what we're doing. We really have to be careful and make sure and understand the full impact of these hormones and what the potential damage that they can cause is. So it's been associated, these problems with methylation have been associated with an increased risk of breast cancer. And we've got to really keep that in mind and do everything that we can to minimize those problems. There are a few other things that I want to talk to you guys about. Let me see, just gathering my thoughts a bit. We've talked about quite a few different things. One of the things that also it's really important to discuss here is birth control and the brain. Okay, and really, from a precision medicine perspective, or and looking, even thinking functional medicine, how do these changes in your chemistry, how can they affect maybe brain chemistry? It's really important to understand that when you deplete these methyl donors, it can lead to lower serotonin levels in the brain. Okay, that's really important. I hope you guys got that. Depleting these methyl donors, right? By birth control, we know depletes these methyl donors. It impacts this process of methylation, but it can also deplete the methyl donors. Depletion of these methyl donors can lead to lower serotonin levels in the brain. And serotonin, if you don't know, it's a hormone that's associated with well-being. Okay, it prevents depression. It's really, you have to have good methylation for optimal serotonin levels. And there's a lot of different things that can support that. One of the things, if you're going to be on these birth control pills, these oral birth control pills, there are definitely some things that you need to be doing. And some compounds that we know can support methylation are things like methyl B12. It has to be methyl B12. It could be methylcobalamin, that's methylated B12. P5P is an active form. MSM, we know, trimethylglycine are important. Things that support serotonin, we know that 5-HTP can support serotonin, St. John's wort, SAMe. These are all things that can support support serotonin and support methylation. And definitely, I usually recommend people take methyl donors, use supplementation that are methyl donors if they're not able to get off of the birth control pills. So it's really kind of important to understand some of these things. And if they're being depleted, we can supplement with them. But the best thing to do is to try to minimize the risk by addressing the source of the problem if you can. So the other thing is like birth control pills and thyroid function. So, we've talked a lot about the liver, and if you guys, followed me and understand, how I try to look at the entire physiology of the thyroid, that the liver is critical for conversion of T4 to T3, right? Your T4 is your primary thyroid hormone, but it's not really active. T3 is the hormone that's active that stimulates all the benefits. So if you have elevated estrogens from birth control pills, it can cause symptoms of low thyroid function. The way that it does that is because it can decrease the liver's ability to convert T4 to T3. So that's a huge, huge issue. If you can't convert T4 to T3, you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems. And the liver converts about 60% of the hormone that's made by the thyroid into T3 in various forms of T3 that have to be carried out and converted in other places throughout the body. But that's one critical issue, is that people will not convert T4 to T3 well, especially with the burden on the liver. Now, beyond that, you have to look at things like problems with thyroid binding globulins. So in the body, your thyroid hormone, okay, is carried around by thyroid binding globulins, these proteins in the blood. That's why you have total T4 and total T3, and you have free T4 and free T3. Because when the hormone is bound to a carrier protein that transports it through the bloodstream to drop it off wherever it needs to go, it's called a bound thyroid hormone. It's a total hormone that's that is stuck to these carrier proteins. When it's free floating, it is free for the cells of the body to use. Now, these elevated estrogens, what they can do is they can increase the number of those little carrier proteins. I call them like taxi cabs. Think of them as like a taxi cab, and the thyroid hormone hitches a ride on it and gets carried through the bloodstream. These can increased estrogen levels can increase the number of those carrier proteins, causing you to bind and hold on to them in greater amounts than you would want to. Okay, greater numbers. So you have more total hormone and less free hormone available. So increased estrogens can create more of those binding proteins, causing your thyroid hormone that's free floating to be stuck and bound to these carrier proteins, and therefore not available for the cells of the body to use. That's one of the patterns we very, very commonly see with increased estrogen, and that can happen with these hormones. So I want you guys to understand that, this is a big issue. This is something that you've got to consider. If you are taking estrogen, if you're taking birth control, if you're having problems with your thyroid, these are things that you have to consider. And there's a lot of things that I've shared with you here that I hope help you. But if you guys listen, if you need help, you've got to find someone that can help you assess what's going on with your body, assess the risk, and help you put together a plan and give you information and guidance so that you can make the best decisions for you. Right, to protect your health long term, to give you a long, vibrant, and healthy life. That's the goal, right? So I want to share this with you. If you guys need anything, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us. You can always reach out to my staff and I. You can find us at drbradshook.com. If you need help, if you're stuck, if you want someone to help you assess what's going on, so you can put together a precise plan to best help you try to improve your health. I do work with people across the world, around the world. We communicate with people via Skype, FaceTime, and phone, and we also help them get advanced diagnostic testing. We often do very extensive testing to get the most information possible so that we can put together very precise plans to best help you figure out how to improve your health. So if you need help with that, reach out to us and we may be able to work with you and assist you. If you're looking for something to do very tailored guidance that's very specific to this world of functional medicine and precision medicine, then you might want to consider joining our transformation community. It is a fantastic group and program. We are trying to change the face of healthcare with this thing, and we have put together video guided programs for people in the transformation community that walks you through and holds your hand in the simplest way we can possibly do it. The dietary, lifestyle, and nutritional supplementation that we have used clinically for years to help people improve a lot of these problems, improve their autoimmunity, improve their Hashimoto's, decrease and improve estrogen dominance, improve liver function, improve liver health, improve gut function, heal leaky gut. All these things, we've put together a program. We actually have multiple programs that are sequential that you can follow through, but it's called the Transformation Community. You can go to our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook and ask about it. You can join us at the Greater Hickory Thyroid Support Group on Facebook and ask about it, and we will post a link to it. But it's a groundbreaking program and group because we have a private Facebook group that goes with it that we support very closely, and there's also access to the physician-only supplements that we use that we give you at our cost. This program, we're trying to help people that want to have a very guided and specific approach that we know has worked for thousands of people, and we want to help support and guide these people in a group, and then they can support one another as well. They can be a support network, and you get this at the very lowest cost possible, right? You get everything at our cost, which we're trying to change the face of healthcare, and we want to help you if we can. If there's anything that we can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out, guys. Please do share, like our post, our blog, our podcast. If you found this valuable, please give us feedback. If there's something that you think we can do better, we're always trying to help you guys out as much as we can and make a difference. So I appreciate you so much. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Talk to you guys again very soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.